First, we want to send a 10 players holler out to anyone who's done a video response to this. If you have, you already know the topic. For those who haven't, ZONE6 posed a question to the YTBC. Which was this: how do you determine a good boxer, and a bad one? Now this can be tricky, so it's gotta be listened to carefully. Zone then came up with example questions so this could be understood with clarity. Such as, if the world ended and had to be rebuilt, and there was no such thing as boxing, and we had 20 guys in the same weight class that knew nothing of the sport but wanted to fight, how'd we determine which guy would come out on top before any of them even entered the ring? He also asked how'd we crown a champion? Which is a two-part question in our view. Because one's opinion based and the other's based on how we'd acknowledge the answer. Because no matter what we think, or personally like when it comes to determining what makes a good boxer before they enter the ring, the real answers come in the ring. If we're gonna determine who'll be a good boxer and end up on top before even seeing them box, we're gonna have to see how they perform in the gym outside the ring. Personally, we're interested in a fighter's mind before all. It'll mirror what they'll be. That's the foundation for us. Not how he flicks the jab, has incredible footwork, feints, uppercuts and blah blah blah. He can be the best we've seen with all that shit, but ends up with an eggshell for a chin. So we like fighters that are principle based. Techniques work with particular things, principles work with all things. They're the laws all techniques dwell under. The same way one can learn techniques with a job. They can be a great typist, engineer or pilot. But what they learn will only apply when it comes to that particular job. But willpower is something you need no matter what the job. With literally anything. Same applies in the ring. Principles work with any opponent no matter the style. It's the foundation to being one who can adapt.
Be water, my friend.
Damn Skippy. That's what we'd look for. And it begins with a fighter with a fluid mind. It'll translate in the ring. We're simply saying our personal preference. This guy had a swift, speedy mouth, because his mind was, and it's no coincidence that his hands operated the same way in the ring. From the first time his bike was stolen as a child he had the will, which was the foundation to his achievements. So when it comes to styles and skill sets we're more principle based. We don't want to turn a fighter into a particular style. He innately has one, so we favor fighters who apply principles to what they're innately good at. Different fighters innately doing what suits their frame's key. So we personally don't look for a particular style. Besides, who the fuck wants to see every fighter doing the exact same shit against each other? That shit would be boring as fuck. Every fighter has an animal in him, so we're looking for a fighter with the will to master his inner animal. No matter what it is. And it's what we'd look for in a fighter before entering the ring. But see, we got a three-part question out of this. Because personally, how we determine who'd be the best fighter before entering the ring, and how we determine who's the best after they face each other, has nothing to do with how we determine a champion. They're three different things. So we view it as three different questions. Since the best fighter might not be the champion. Because the best fighter to us is the guy who's beating the most ass in the ring. But in real life it doesn't matter if you beat twice as many guys as your opponent, or if you can beat a shitload of guys he can't. If he whips your ass, he takes the belt. But if that guy can only beat one fighter out of the 19 he faces, and that fighter's you, and you can beat all out of the 19 except that one, you're the better fighter in our view. Even if that guy takes your belt, the other 18 fighters can still bust his ass. He's like that worker that learned that technique at the job. He can only do a job on you, but's fucked with the rest of the fighters. The same way beating an ATG doesn't make you one. So our personal view of how we determine the best fighter, is based on who does the most and best with corresponding challenges. Which brings us to the final question. Which was, how'd we crown a champion? What formalities would we take in resurrecting this lost sport called boxing? Personally, we'd have the sport of boxing operate like real sports. That should be extremely simple to understand. Unfortunately, divas and greedy promotional outfits have the minds of fanboys so fucked, that they get away with it not operating like normal sports. See, if we've got 20 fighters, then they'd have to face each other. The same way teams have to actually face one another. You want that belt? Then the two who defeat the most must face off. No shit about the Lakers claiming they'll tell you who they'll pick to play next. How much money they gonna make? You better use the court and ball they want. They're the A side offering this much money or no game. Then claiming you don't know shit about basketball if you don't agree with their off-the-court duck tactics. Fuck all that. Everyone faces everyone. I mean, you've got fans talking about Sergey. If main events didn't bite, no one would be paying attention to the guy. So all 20 need to get a chance to display their abilities. Not left out because this or that promotional outfit didn't bite. Anyone at the start of the marathon can end up with the crown if they can cut the mustard. So if you're one of the 20, you'll get a shot, just like all the runners. Therefore 18 of 20 fighters will have 19 fights. And 2 of the 20 will have 20 fights. That's if all runs smooth and we don't end up with a shitload of draws. Because the 2 with the most wins out of the 20 would face off in their 20th fight for the belt. The rest don't get there, the same way all teams don't make the playoffs. And fancy schmancy shit means nothing in the end. All that matters is who's standing at the final bell. Boxing's more opinion-based than team sports. Like no one judges the way the ball went through the hoop in the game. Or how effectively it went through. If the shit went through, it went through. No one claims you threw it through the hoop harder so it's worth more, even though the other team hit 100 more shots. Yet unlike boxing, the game can't end in the first 30 seconds because one particular shot was so incredible. Or the dunk was so badass that it ended the game even though they were down by 30. Yet it's valid in boxing. Because a knockout's a knockout. That's what made boxing the ultimate sport. But the outline should be the same. Every team has a shot if they keep winning, and have to face another winning. They can't duck that team claiming they're not a big enough draw. That's the reason we watch. Yet boxing's completely missed the point. Some say boxing's a business. So do we. What many fail to understand is if boxing worked this way, it would become a bigger business for all, rather than just a couple of guys. But personally, when it comes to crowning a fighter, we don't always feel the guy with the belt's the best. As we explained already. But this system provides better clarity. Because no one questions if any team who wins a title's really the champions. And they'd stop questioning so many fighters if they faced opponents the same way. But if 20 fighters faced each other, even if the worst fighter could beat the best every time, it would be mathematically impossible for him to ever win the crown under the system. One could debate who's the best in a title fight, but at least those fighters would prove themselves worthy of the debate. And since knockouts destroy the debates of who won questionable fights, instead of one person no matter how a fighter wins. An extra bonus large enough to inspire fighters to seek the knockout if they can stop their opponent would be great. For fighters to give us what we want to see, they need a reason. And they should be given one. That's our take. So holler to Zone and all who responded. Much respect. And until the next one. Peace. We're out.